about this feeling, baby, we're invincible.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Rebuilding Notts County. It's Season 14 Analysis Days time. So, I've been thinking, obviously I've seen responses towards the Real Madrid episodes and whatnot. That's what we're most going to be focusing on in coming up comments in other videos, of course, because, yeah, that sort of stuff just left me broken, and obviously you would have seen other stuff since then. Now, of course, I feel like I was more angry about the other two episodes, purely because they were recorded directly after the Real Madrid one, so... You know, I even had to put an editor's note in one of them just because I was like, nah, there's not really a lot wrong with that, Matt, other than the slide tackle thing's a bit annoying, but whatever. But one of the comments I did get was that perhaps the idea of replacing Guerra entirely. Now, I still don't think that's a good idea because, let's face it, he is still... He's been in the team of the year. Like, this is not a bad footballer. But that doesn't mean that Rincon couldn't actually be better in theory. So, I've been looking at this. And Guerra definitely overall, definitely... I mean, he ticks the box in some other areas, but he's lacking a little bit in others. And I do wonder, you know, if Rincon... I mean, he actually only started one match for us this year. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist. Now, the one downside about him is he is left-footed only, which could be a little bit of a problem. I do like having a striker with both that can use both feet really competently. But when you do a little comparison of the two of them, so for an advanced forward, which is the role we play and will always be playing... Really, Rincon has some solid options here. So, dribbling, first touch, and finishing is identical, except Rincon is ever so slightly better on the finishing. Can't really argue with that. Free kicks, he's nowhere near as good, which is fair enough. But he has got better heading, way better heading, in fact, of 14, which makes a difference. You know, it just does. His passing is slightly better. Technique is slightly worse. Now, I'm not really sure what this one really means. Put off a tricky pass or a cross-field ball. I don't know how important that really is, but... I mean, still, it's not bad. 14 is not bad at all. Anticipation is much better, and that might well lead to things. People were harking on about the anticipation side of things. Composure is 1 worse, but again, it's negligible. Decisions, 1 worse again. Off the ball, much better. 3 better, in fact. And his work rate is also improved. He's slightly better on the acceleration of things. He's got better agility and balance to go with it, and he's slightly faster. Slightly worse on the stamina, but not by much. He averages... I mean, this is the key thing here. From a technical standpoint, he is slightly worse on average, but that is probably buffed by Guerra having some of the attributes we don't really need slightly higher, so he's got good corners and free kicks as well. In terms of mental attributes, Rincon is already better than him, despite being, 6 years younger than him, 5 years younger than him, and he's better on the physical side of things. He's also an inch taller, slightly better jumping reach, and has better heading. I do wonder if Rincon is just a better all-round player, and, bearing in mind being younger, I think he could continue to improve, so I genuinely think that perhaps next year, Georges Rincon could well be the starting striker for Notts County, and maybe if the right money was there, Guerra could well see his time at Notts County come to an end, perhaps. I really don't know. I think we need to try something different next season, and I wonder if Rincon is the man for that, to make that shit happen for us. It's just an idea. I don't know if I'd actually sell Guerra or not, but I would definitely be tempted to give Rincon a lot more game time. Like, potentially just throw him straight in as the starter and see how well he does. Because, obviously, from a statistics point of view, his stats are worse. But that's not really fair, because he's only started 1 match this season. 26 substitute appearances. But it's just not a fair comparison. It just isn't. So we can't really base anything on that right now. But I'm pleased with this. And then one thing I would say is people were saying that Guerra isn't good for the big games. I disagree. He actually even has one of the attributes for enjoying big matches. So that's not something I would be interested in changing because he is that. One thing I would say, though, is that Rincon has got consistency. So that could give us a little bit more of a boost. So maybe he'd be more consistent as he gets towards that. And we'd also have Hadi Aslami around, because I want to try and maybe switch to match teams that play 4-4-2 to go with a 2-striker system and move out our attacking mid against them to match them and just try to beat them in every position. And perhaps having a player like Hadi Aslami around to play a deep lying forward role in that system could well be what we really need, because I don't think I'd really trust both of them as inside forwards. It would kind of defeat the point. So it's enough about that. Let's actually get and have a look at the squad, but I thought I'd just start with that. So we're just going to go through and have a quick look at the squad and how everything's kind of going. Greg Campbell, another good year for the man. He's just a really good player, isn't he? His contract's up next summer, so we'll probably give him a new one this summer. I think he's already signed it, to be fair. He's just an elite fullback, and I love him. I don't really think we can really do much better than him, to be perfectly honest, and I'm not even going to try. Summer is going to be a weird one in terms of signings, because we've got £110 million and 350k in wage budget, and honestly, I think I'll barely spend any of it, because there's so few positions I actually want to strengthen. I think we just need to sort out ourselves tactically a little bit better, and next year we'll be right in there. So, something else I wanted to talk about, and I'm probably going to mention this in an upcoming video anyway, but I figured I'd try it out here as well, is that I did a simulation test last night, where I ran the a database with a load of leagues turned on, including like down to like League Two in the Conference or the National League in England, for 42 years overnight, which is actually surprisingly good. Actually, this computer really does have an insane processor with all these leagues turned on to do 42 years overnight. And I went through today just to have a little look to see if I could find any interesting scenarios, because I want to do another series of March to Safety, where I take a big side that were in relegation trouble and save them, like we did with Liverpool about 5 years ago. I really want to do that again because it was fun. And I'm not even joking, the Premier League 42 years after the start of the save looks basically the same. It is ridiculous. How has this game reached this level where nothing changes anymore? It doesn't represent real football in any way. It's like FIFA shit. It really is bugging me now, because that never used to be the case. You could sim like 5 years into the future and a team from League One would be in the Premier League and doing really well, or a team from the Premier League would drop down to League One. I couldn't find a single example of a team who were more than one division removed from the division they started in. And more so, 18 of the teams in the Premier League in 2062 were the teams that were in it the very first season. The only ones that were there were Leeds, traditionally, and West Brom. And that's ridiculous to me. And moreover than that, I know this is a bit of a rant now, but I think you'd understand where I'm coming from. Of those 42 titles, Manchester City won 18, Manchester United won 20, and Chelsea won the other 3. Really? Like, that is ridiculous. And none of the top 7 sides, the top 6 sides, finished outside of the top 8 in that entire period. It's very, very frustrating to see so little change, when in real football, that's just not how things go. And I wonder why that's suddenly come about over the recent iterations of Football Manager. Anyway, moving on. Greg Campbell. He's had a good year. I like him. 10 assists, which is actually pretty damn good. Might well be his best ever season in assists. Yeah, very much so. Not his best... actually his best season ever for us, comfortably. So well played, Greg. Always nice to see. Andreas Damgaard, he's on loan at Schalke, but he has signed a new contract, so he's going to be sticking around because he's just a useful player to have in the midfield. He's got a lot of interesting attributes. It does surprise me, actually, that he's not got a Denmark call-up, considering how good some of these attributes actually are. But maybe they just don't use his role, I suppose. Agustin de los Santos. I know he's lacking the consistency here, but I really do feel like this guy is catching up to James Unger. Year upon year, he's putting better and better performances down. 7 goals and 7 assists in all competitions this season, despite only starting 18 matches. I mean, it's definitely a step up of previous years. Like, he's got 4 more goals and 6 more assists, has his best ever season in a Notts County shirt. And I did predict this when he joined us for £60,000, that he could well be one of those players that just grows into the squad and just keeps on growing. I don't know if he's got a Uruguay cap. He does have a Uruguay cap. For a £60,000 player, he's now worth £30 million and continues to grow. I mean, I really, really like him. I do think that potentially Unger could have a real race on his hands next year. I want to sort of... Actually, we're going to do this now, since what else are these episodes for, after all? So obviously Unger, dominates him for a lot of these things, except for the vision side of things and a little bit on the mentals. Unger is much better physically and defensively and a lot of areas. But statistically, this is what really matters. They are very, very evenly matched when it comes to statistics. Like, Unger's slightly better in terms of goals. He has got 13 in total. Assists, they're basically level. De Los Santos loves the key pass. Their pass completion is very similar, and Unger does hit the target a lot more. De Los Santos can definitely complete a tackle, and he does put in a little bit more work overall. But like when you say, look at the league, for example, again, Unger's got 10 goals and 7 assists. De Los Santos has got 7 goals and 6 assists. That's still 17 goals that they've scored from that side. We're definitely getting a lot more goals from our wingers, and that's really a key factor with what I was looking for. So that's pleasing. Remy Dubois. Every time I think this guy's about to have a poor season and drop off, he just continues to excel. Still only 34 caps for France at the age of 28 years old now, but he's got a new contract coming this summer, and I can't wait for him to sign it, frankly, because he continues to be one of the standout performers. Nearly 250 appearances for Notts County in the league now. He's been here 8 years, and I adore him. He's going nowhere, and you notice that Becker is really stepping into the fold now. Hadi Islami, I really do feel like he's improving. Okay, this season he's not played so much, and that's been an issue. But next year, I think he'll get more game time, to be honest. And I'm really keen to keep him around the club because I actually really like him as a player. And I think using him as a deep lying forward in a 4-4-2, if we were to switch to it against 4-4-2s, could well be a massive step up for us. Everton Luis hasn't been here long enough, but hey, I'm sure he'll have plenty of time to grow as well. Hugo Fernandez continues to impress me as a sort of backup option to Greg Campbell. He does a good job. He's happy to be here. That's fine by me. He's only started 9 games this year. Greg Campbell's not had the injuries of normal time. We've already looked at Jose Lalsinquera. 35 goals in all competitions, 28 in the league. He's been a little bit poorer in the Champions League this year. That's what I would say. That's where he sort of stepped off a little bit, which is a shame. But 35 goals, I can hardly argue with a guy getting 35 goals, can I? Jean Carlos, another excellent season for him. In fact, that is comfortably his best ever season in a Notts County shirt. To give you an idea, like this is a guy who dropped off quite a bit last year, but this year is back with a vengeance. He actually played well, nearly the least amount of games he's ever played in the Premier League. Equaled his best goal tally and thrashed his best assist tally. And just what an absolute god. Love him so much. He is comfortably staying. Like, I don't want to get rid of him. I think he signed a new deal anyway. I'm not sure. It might have been last time, actually. Nikolai Jespersen is one of those guys that we gave a new contract to, so he's going to be here for a while yet. He sort of slumped off towards the end of the season, but he is still a very, very useful player, and particularly in the Champions League. He's such a big game player for us, and that's totally fine by me. I love the guy to death. And we've got real options in centre-back. I do think it's one of our weak points, but it's also not for the lack of depth. So we've got Bertelsen, we've got Jespersen, Ioannis, we've got Machado, Tininho. We've got another guy as well, I swear. So we're lacking a real standout player there, but I do believe that these guys can step into that fold. And that's why I really don't intend to sign anyone unless they are unbelievable. Juan Tirso has been out on loan at Napoli this year. Has done very well, though. 15 goals for them, including 4 goals in one game. If he wants to leave in the summer, I will let him because it will get us a shitload of money. And we really just don't need him right now. He's not the kind of player we want. Bertelsen, I think he's still got room to grow. He's only 19 years old. I think this is a misrepresentation of him by my scout. And I think given more Premier League playing time, he really could be something extra special for us. And I look forward to that because he's tall, excellent in the air as well. That is a very rare combination for a centre-back, frankly. Sean Lancaster, contract's up next summer. If he wants to leave this summer, he is welcome to. Because, again, we want to clear the squad out a little bit. I do love him, but that's just the way things are. Darren Lever hasn't played as much as he would have liked this year. Still has 16 caps for England, though. So that is ridiculous. And he actually has got some incredibly good attributes. He's just not quite as good as Ahmed Aitach. It's just, that's the way it goes. He is wanted by someone. Tottenham, interesting. Vitor Machado, again, he's here. He's fine. Didn't play for us much this year, which is interesting because he's not that bad. But I think he'll get game time next year. And he has improved towards the end of the year, which is really, really nice to see. Melo Lake, he's obviously been out on loan. Brendan Milnes, his contract is up this summer and he may well finally leave us after 11 years at the club, the 26-year-old. He needs to have a bit of a career. And I feel like he could play in the Championship. Thomas Piszczek, he's been out injured for a long time. He had a hip injury and now he's got a twisted ankle. So that might have stymied his development somewhat. And we are still looking a little bit thin beyond the bare minimums of Dubois, Becker, and Asman in that midfield. So we may look for another midfielder. Rincon, obviously we've got high hopes for what this guy could potentially still do, given more game time. Sandoval is another guy that I still believe, we're still training him in this role, and I genuinely believe he could still be excellent there, but he does need a little bit more sorting out and whatnot, so that's fine. Arthur Silva, he's done really well this year. I did not expect him to start as many games as he did. I actually brought him in as a backup to Acevedo, and he's basically ended up playing way more games than Acevedo. And I'm kind of alright with that. Hasn't been brilliant in the Premier League, but in the Champions League, he's been sensational. Marvin Suarez, obviously one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Not getting rid of him anytime soon. Love him to death. And we've also got Aguilar as a backup to him anyway. Ferguson, he's here. And he's got a new contract. He'll be sticking around. Like, he's got a decent number of assists in the Premier League. 6 Premier League assists so far this season. By far his best ever return for us. And it does make you wonder if there's a way we could maybe retrain this guy to play slightly deeper. Maybe make him a different option there. But I think that, actually, to be honest, that's probably a pretty good option. If we could get him natural in both of these roles, it could be a real game changer for us to have him available for both situations. Could be quite useful. Danilo, again, another Brazilian defender. Still fairly young, but actually not as young as some of the others. So perhaps there's something there. James Unger. Now, we're getting more and more of these appearing, and that is a concern for me. He's still played 34 games this year, but he missed 14 Premier League matches, which is weird because, last season at Bournemouth, he actually did... he's still got 10 Premier League goals and 7 assists, which is decent, but I wanted more from him. And I feel like if he could just... This is the problem. He's not inconsistent. It's just the injuries strike, and then he'll drop down, and then he'll come back, and then he'll drop down. That seems to be the main problem. And if we could just keep him fit for a year... And I think the way I'm going to do that is by rotating around. So I'll really keep an eye on his match injury risk. And if he's high or even medium, although more likely high, we will get De Los Santos in for a game. That way we can try and keep Unger fresher for longer. And I think that might be the best approach. Because I know that De Los Santos would have to play even if he was injured. But I'd rather have Unger at my disposal than be forced into the changes. So that's what we're going to try and do for next year. A bit more sensible on that one. Uranis, I actually adore this guy. He's probably been my standout centre-back this year. Jespersen's been good, I agree. But Uranis has been the one banging goals in for us. 7 goals. It's not quite, your 10 goals of certain players, but he's also been up as high as 4 stars at one point before we had that dreadful drop-off towards the end of the season. I think tiredness just caught up with us, unfortunately. Acevedo, he's still got this mad potential that my assistant keeps harping on about, and I do think long-term he can reach that. But this year, Arthur Silva got in the squad when he was injured, and we'll have to see who wins out the battle in the preseason situation. Aguilar is, of course, our backup goalkeeper. I touch, what a season. He only played 38 starts and got 23 goals. Comfortably his best season for us, although weirdly not in terms of average rating. He got 3 more goals though, and the same number of assists, so to me it's still a step up on last season. But the key thing for me isn't so much that, it's his performance in other competitions. So overall last year, he got 17 goals and 11 assists. This year, 23 goals and 13 assists. It's those continental goals. Last season, he only managed 2 in 10 games in the continent, whereas this year he got 5 goals in 6 matches. So he's definitely stepping up in the big matches, which is really, really important to me. So, you know, he's obviously not going anywhere. Assman, once again, is another one of those players. He's on a large contract, which does expire next summer. And we might have to take a little look at that, potentially. But I still think he's good enough to stay, even if he wants more money. Because he is just an excellent player. And obviously, this isn't always representative of their actual attributes. It's more based on their progress. And I like that. Joran Beckhardt, he's still only 21 years old. He is considered a cultured midfielder now. And he's only going to get better and better and better. So the Dubois-Beckhardt partnership with Assman in behind, Piszczek as an option. I wouldn't mind one more central midfielder, though. And that shouldn't be a problem because there's usually a bloody abundance of them. Greg Campbell, and we're back to Greg Campbell. So let's go and check out the league stat. This is going to be a slightly strange video just because I'm trying to figure out where I even want to sign players, and I'm not going to just do it for the sake of it, because we're not bringing in players on huge contracts that we might not want to play. So what I'm really looking for now is if anyone super stands out that we could potentially go after. That's really all I care about at this point. So average possession, Chelsea, obviously we're mid-table as usual on that one. Penalties taken, good God, Liverpool had 12 penalties. Headers won, yeah, that's about right. Yellow cards, but we didn't come top for once, which was nice. Bolton up there, Brighton very, very bad, and Man United, well, the Manchester club's just not fouling anyone. That's very kind of them. Apart from West Ham, who decided to just get red cards for days. Best attack ever for us. And we were 7 clear of the other teams, which was very, very nice. So, yeah, 92 goals in the Premier League is brilliant. Oh, my God, Bolton only scored 17. Cross completion ratio is pretty damn solid. And the most crosses completed by a country mile. 13 goals from corners. That's more like it. We've really stepped up. And, amazingly, 4 direct free kicks this season, which is a very, very high for us. So 17 goals right there just from set pieces. And goals from indirect free kicks make that 23. And I think we've scored some penalties too, in fact. So how many was that? Wow. Whoa. That is insane. Our penalty ratio is shocking. That's massively below average, which is really weird considering how good we normally are from the penalty spot. Very odd. Clean sheets, not actually that great. We scored a lot of goals, but conceded a few more this season. So there is that element of things, which is weird because usually this tactic is more defensively stable. But what can you do? Let's see what else we got. Average attendance by capacity, 100%. Stadium sellouts, all of them. Highest attendance, 38,000. Wow, imagine us playing in a 38,000 stadium. Net transfer spend, 20 million. That's not bad, is it? And our salary per annum is still number 11 in this division. Still number 11. And we've won the title 3 out of the last 4 years. And so I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous episode, but 2 of the last 3 seasons, we've been knocked out of the Champions League by the team that then won it. And it could happen again this year if Real Madrid beat Everton, which would make it 3 out of 4 seasons we've lost to the team that won it, no matter which round we were knocked out in. Which isn't the end of... It makes me feel like maybe we've just been a bit unlucky with some of our draws in places. Particularly this year. I feel getting Real Madrid was very, very unfortunate to get them in the first knockout round. But that's life. Right, player detail. This is what I'm really interested in. I want to find potentially another central midfielder. Perhaps. You never know. Unfortunately, it can't be Yehuda Gola because he's moved to Atletico under Frank Lampard of all people, who's finally left Chelsea. Red cards, okay. Pinto obviously got one, and so did Darren Lever because he's a silly boy. No one really near this one. Guerra, Unger, I touch, but no one even coming close to my man June, who admittedly did score an insane amount of goals this season. Distance covered overall. Okay, that's not really that important to me. Average rating, anyone from the relegated clubs. Who was the relegated clubs? It was Bolton, Huddersfield, and... I've actually forgotten. Bolton, Huddersfield, and West Ham in the end went down on goal difference. I always knew that them conceding 83 goals was probably going to come back to bite them in the arse, and what do you know, it did. So, okay, so Bolton, West Ham, and Huddersfield. I mean, oh my God, they actually have a player here, Gonçalo Eres, and he's a midfielder. I wonder if he's got a... Well, we weren't going to find out there, are we? What I might do is get a cheeky little scout report on this lad, because another option in the midfield would not be the end of the day, particularly if we could get him cheap. As a result of the relegation, perhaps. But I don't know if he'll have a relegation release clause. We'll have to see. 31 goals. Guerra still got 28 in the Premier League, which is one of his best ever seasons. I think the only season he's ever got more was 29 that one time. Did get less assists this year overall, in fairness. But And he also did play every single game, which is actually quite impressive. But yeah, I do wonder if Rincon having that little extra kind of efficiency and consistency could help. Garrett, wow, he scored that many goals off of that few shots. iTouch has got way more shots, and I would have expected better from him, frankly. Shots on target, James Unger with 70 shots on target, and yet only scored 10 goals. That just makes me think that it's something to do with the right wing in general. He's only got 12 finishing compared to iTouch, who has 8. Okay, no idea then. Shots on target overall, James Unger's right in there as well. Conversion rate, wow, 30% conversion rate. That is ridiculous. Penalties, wow, that's decent. Unfortunately, Guerra's missed. Yeah, it should be around about 78%. That's where it should be. It's not. So, assist-wise, Suleiman Mohamed Martinez of Newcastle, who is a right-sided player, got 15 assists in the Premier League, but I'm guessing it's because he takes corners and free kicks too, given how good those are. There's also Omar Diallo of Brighton, who is again a right-sided midfielder, although his corners are pretty poor. So is his free kick taking. So he might not be. Then again, we don't need a right-sided player. We've got good players in those positions. It's not really where I need to be paying attention to right now. What we really should be looking at is West Ham and those guys. But they scored so few goals, it's really hard to say. So key passes. Braganza, okay. And there's Aries again of West Ham. He has some options there because he's rivaling Remy Dubois. In fact, he's outplaying him as it goes for that role. Anyone else from one of the relegated sides, perhaps? Okay, Connor Bristow of Bolton is an advanced playmaker. And key passes, solid. Okay. I'm not above signing a player who's not quite there because it would just give us some squad depth, frankly. So, and the fact is he was on here for a reason. And even Jordan Beckart got on there. Considering he would have mostly played at the Met Salah, he's still getting those kind of passes, which is interesting. Chance creation, very important now. We're a little bit lacking. And again, Ares. This guy could be a creation machine. Like, he's particularly on the chance creation. Notice how Remy Dubois is not on here, because often he provides hockey assists. The pass before the pass. John Carlos is actually highest here, which is interesting. So, and also, another guy from West Ham. He's a striker, and he's just not as good. He's a perfectionist, though, which is a good personality to have. FYI. Omar Diallo again. Gabriel Veron. He's a real player, and he's also going to be really old. No, he's 30, but that's a bit... He also won a lot of money being 30. What's he on? 74 grand a week, and he's also an invert... I think Darren Lever's probably better than him, to be honest. Okay, pass completion, not that important to me right now. Cross completion, this one kind of misses that up a little bit. Douglas, so we've got Unger on there, and iTouch. Any big surprises? What is this Douglas guy from... How has he got that level of dribbling with 12 dribbling? I know he's got decent ones on this, but this is what I mean, right? There's some players that just seem to be able to dribble past you for seemingly no reason, despite having poorer stats than you would imagine. And there's no real explanation for it. But that's just what it is. Mateus Cabral's on there as well. Richard Martinez of Huddersfield is right winger. Thing is, anyone who's got good dribbling is going to almost certainly be a winger, because most of the time, fullbacks don't really get a chance to actually do any dribbling, so it's not really that important to me. Tackles per 90 minutes. Okay. Douglas again. That is weird. And I believe we had a similar situation with James Unger when he was at Bournemouth, and it makes you wonder if it's just because of the way Bournemouth play. I presume they've got the same manager, so that suggests that perhaps that's the reason. So we've got Dario Alvarez here of West Ham, who's a left back. I mean, he's just not any better than what we've got, and he's 28 years old. Capatillo, right-sided player. I just think he's even worse there. Like, it's really hard to find those kind of players at this point. We really are just looking at, like, standout players, and... It's very unlikely. Charlie Green of Spurs. I mean, actually, wow, he's a very strange player. He's one of those guys that can play all the way up and down the wing. Mistakes leading to a goal. Well, who to avoid then? Peter Chapman. Definitely avoid him, as well as Dorlan Delgado, potentially. Anatoly Andriashenko. Hang on, wait a minute. Isn't that our former guy? Yes, it is. Hey, it's the centre-back that scored that one really important goal for us. I didn't know idea he was at Huddersfield now. Moved to one on a free and got him promoted. Fair play, although he had a dreadful season in the Premier League with them. Oh, dearie me, that is poor. Mistakes. Key tackles, Uranus. That's what I like to see. Really, really nice to see Uranus top of that one. That's why I've been a fan of his. Roger Smits. He's a wing-back. He's very, very short. Who's he wanted by? West Brom. Like, he's made a lot of tackles, but that does not fill me with confidence. There's Clovis Cortez Gomez, who we always seem to take a look at and see on him every single time. But, again, I just don't think that they make us that much better. David Rowland of Bolton is also a left back, but so many of these ones are probably just because they've had to, because they are in those positions, unfortunately. I don't know. Oh, it's Keanu Hoover. We were looking at him on Unial. Never actually got him in it. Of course, Sebastiano Esposito, the magic striker, is winning on key headers. That goes without saying. Although Deng is a 6'2" right back. I might just get a scout report on him anyway, just because I just want to see what some of these guys are like. Ramiro Sesca, presumably he'll be a fullback as well. No, he's a centre-back with... How has he got one of the best heading ratings in the league? This is, again, what I mean. He's got a high jumping rate. That's very high, actually. But I suppose that means he'd win the headers. He just can't direct them very far. I don't know. Gael Perrier is still on there, which just goes to show that there was a reason why he was good when we had him. Interceptions made. Deng again. I don't know. I think we might need to have a bit more of a deep dive in the actual summer and see if I can find anyone, because we've got a huge transfer budget. Like, our transfer budget is 110 million with this. But, and I know there is probably going to be a couple of guys joining us in the summer. I can't remember who, but there is definitely someone. I can't this person here. Oh, it's the guy from Belgium. I don't know. I really don't know. I like the squad how it is, and I really do think that a lot of those players, despite it saying 3 stars, it's going to be very difficult to find a better player than them in some of those positions without spending insane money. Which, again, I'm not opposed to doing, but I really am struggling to figure out where we would put that money, because I'm actually happy with quite a lot. I think the one position I would potentially strengthen is if we could find a world-class, I mean like 5-star centre-back, because that's the one position I would be tempted to really flash the cash. I would spend 100 million on one if it just gives us that tiny bit more defensive stability, but I genuinely don't know who, and I would be tempted perhaps just to scout centre-backs from all the top leagues and just see who the best one is and just go and get him, frankly, because sometimes you've got to spend that kind of money. I have no idea who that could be, but I'm willing to go and find out, essentially. That's what I'm trying to put out here. So let's go and have a quick gander at the actual squad with some of the filters, I suppose. We're not going to dwell on this too much because, again, there's a limit to what we can really ascertain at this point. We can see if someone's been really poor. So we're really looking at fullbacks here, which is kind of the key factor. So you can see that Arthur Silva has outperformed Acevedo very clearly. And once again, Greg Campbell is outperforming Hugo Fernandez. It's basically a case of Arthur Silva's come in and staked a claim to that left-back spot, and I'm prepared to let him continue having it. However, assist-wise, I mean, his chance creation is better. Assist-wise, it's relatively the same, although Acevedo does have a better cross-completion ratio, but still, it's very, very good. He does dribble more than Arthur Silva, and he's better in the air, wins more headers, plays a few more key passes. Passing is actually better, tackling is better, interceptions are much better too, and I do kind of wonder, we do see slightly more goals with him. It does kind of make you wonder if Acevedo actually might well be the man, and perhaps Arthur Silva has just kind of waltzed in there due to the injury and got a good star rating, and as a result my assistant kind of just favoured him, because we've also got a perfectionist personality here. I'm considering perhaps bringing back Acevedo for next season for the start and just seeing how it goes. Greg Campbell I still believe is outperforming Fernandez though. How are we doing here? So team goals per 90 minutes with him in the team 53. Fernandez much lower, albeit he has played less games, fair enough. Fernandez hasn't really created any chances this year of note, which is actually quite impressive to have played that many games and not created a single chance. That being said, his assists aren't too bad. Way worse on the cross completion though. He can't dribble to save his life, comparatively speaking anyway. Worse in the air, plays less key passes, plays more passes overall, does win a few more tackles, to be fair, but less actual on the ratio. Interception slightly better, but we could see more goals with him in the team. So Greg Campbell, total definite right back next year. I still think I want to bring back Acevedo though. Beyond that, there's not a lot. So again, if I find any youngsters that are genuinely talented in those positions and are just pure quality for the future, I'll still pick them up though, because we could do with the depth. So let's take a little look at centre-backs now. So really, we're kind of looking at these two with a slight comparison on VKB, because I want to see how he's done over those 800 minutes. It's not like super telling, because you can see we've conceded a lot of goals with him in the team. But he would have played against... I don't know. I still want to give him a chance here. But it really does show that Jespersen and Uranus are the kind of key partnership right now. But I do feel like Bertelsen could get in there. He's winning a lot of headers, and he dribbles a little bit more than they do as well. We score less goals and we concede more goals. So there is that definitely there as a factor. But he does win more tackles, and his tackles won ratio is very, very high. And he likes to make a lot of interceptions as well. I kind of feel like perhaps over a full season, Bertelsen's attributes would perhaps be way closer to these guys. I really do feel like it's a Jespersen and one of these two partnership next season. Not sure who just yet. It could still be Uranus, or I could find someone amazing. And then maybe it would actually be them and then one of the youngsters, so that we've got that rotation option there. But I think like the one position I really do want to splash cash, just because you could see the ability levels here, is centre-back. It would only be one, Because I feel like we've got a lot of depth in terms of the youth prospects here. They're all 20 and 21, really, apart from Bertelsen, who's 19. And that, to me, is a good sign. But I do kind of want to make sure that we've got some kind of wizened, experienced head to go alongside Jespersen. And I think that's going to be my main priority is going to be finding a centre-back in the summer. So, yeah, I think that's basically that for now. Let's go and check out the midfield. So, really, we're looking at your sort of Beckart, Dubois, Assman, essentially. So, mainly, Dubois would have played predominantly... In fact, Dubois would have played entirely as a key... I mean, look at that. 3.13 key passes per match. This guy, these are Regan Booty numbers on steroids. In terms of points per game, Dubois is up there. Beckart and Assman, relatively close in terms of that, which is pleasing. They're giving each other a little bit of a run for their money, which is nice. Goals-wise, Assman's actually got more goals, which is interesting. Like a considerable amount more goals, but we score more goals with Beckart in the team, presumably because he's way better at assisting, like an insane amount better. In fact, he's got more assists than our playmaker. Beckart has got 10 assists this season, playing as a Metsala. That is very interesting. In fact, that means surely he's had his best ever season in a Notts County shirt. Yeah, I mean, he's hit 3 goals in the league every single season, but this year he stepped up and provided those assists. But more importantly, like, he got 5 assists in his first season in all competitions, 1 assist last year, and this year he hit 10, which is a big step up for me, and it shows the development of him as a player. Assman is still a very, very useful option to have around the club, though. Piszczek hasn't really got enough minutes for me to really count that too much. But again, with the midfield, it's a case of Dubois, Beckart, Assman as a backup, and then I might try to find someone around about the 3.5-star, 3-star level to perhaps bring in. So we've got 2 players that we can bring in. So Assman doesn't have to do all the work. Although, I'm alright with that. But we very rarely get injuries in these positions. And I feel like that's going to come to an end at some point this year, to be honest. And when that does happen, particularly as Dubois tends to get knackered, one of the things I find about him is that he doesn't have the best... Well, actually, he does, which is weird. I wonder why he gets so knackered compared to the others. Weird, that one. So, maybe a backup central midfielder too, but the centre-back's my main priority. So let's try attacking mids now. So what we're really comparing here is Torgerson Sandoval to my man John Carlos. I realise there's a lot of players, but like when we're just kind of taking a quick glance, it takes a long time to set out the filters properly. So what we're really looking at, I guess, is points per game. So John Carlos out in front, Torgerson all the way down here, and then Sandoval even lower. There's definitely a difference between the two. John Carlos is clearly the king of that role. But what I would say is that Torgerson creates a lot more chances than him and is very good at the assist side of things, but he's useless in front of goal. It feels to me like John Carlos is a much, much better goal scorer than he is an assister. He's still got a decent number of assists, but he's played a lot of matches. And he's contributed well. Fair play to him. But I feel like if Torgerson played the same amount of minutes in that position, he would have an incredible amount of assists. Like, his assist is nearly 1 per game at the moment, which means if he played like 40 matches, we'd be looking at 30 odd assists potentially. Obviously, it would actually drop off because that's not how that works. But he's useless in front of goal, whereas Jean Carlos is a goal scorer. He scored 13 times from an attacking midfield role this year, whereas Torgerson and Sandoval, in their combined minutes, have scored no goals whatsoever. Sandoval, again, he's still learning the role, so I'll give him a lot of credit. I'll cut him some slack there. But I really do like Rune Torgerson. Considering he got a lot of those assists as a substitute as well. He really is a player you can bring in and he will ping balls around. And I think that will show in the key passes. So key passes for Jean Carlos is 1.69, whereas Torgerson is nearly a full key pass per match higher. And that's a huge difference. And it's the same on chance creation. It's double. That is surely going to lead to more assists. It's just undeniable. He runs with the ball less, which means he's just playing those passes, frankly. 38 key passes when he's on the pitch to 32. His pass completion slightly lower, but he's obviously taking on slightly more aggressive passes from time to time. So that's all right. Jean Carlos is better defensively as well. Well, actually, is he? He makes more interceptions, but we concede less goals with Torgerson in the team. I don't know. It's much of a muchness on that one. But that is still a very low number, to be fair. From starting 7 and coming off the bench in 9 games. That's an interesting amount. I feel like there's something to Torgerson. But honestly, Jean Carlos, if we can keep him in the summer, which again, I feel really no reason why he'd want to leave at this point, to have Torgerson and Sandoval in behind, I am completely confident with those 3. I don't really feel like we need... And we're going to have the Belgian lad joining us too as a backup. So I'm totally fine with that. I don't think that's an area we really need to worry about. Let's go to the wingers. Do left-sided first, just so we can filter it down a tiny little bit. So points per game, I touch out in front. Shocker. Like, what a massive shocker. Let's just get rid of players that are not at club. That's kind of important, at least. We can get rid of that. So iTouch is dominating that side of things. As you can see, it's, Darren Lever has done okay this year, but it's just he's not on the same level, unfortunately. His goals per game is half that of what iTouch is. Chance creation is lower than that. His assist is massively lower. Does complete more crosses, but does that really matter at this point if the chances are going in the back of the net? Dribbles per game is lower. He wins less headers per game. Way less, in fact. Less key passes. Less passes per 90 minutes at all. His pass completion is slightly better, in fairness, but he wins less tackles. Makes more interceptions, but we could see more goals with him in the team. He is essentially just the backup at this point. But I don't really want to lose him, to be honest, because then we would be lacking somewhat. And he is still a useful player. Like, he scored some important goals for us this season. Without him, we would have lost matches. That, make no mistake, because iTouch can't play every game. So I want to make sure Lever's here, and he's definitely a solid player. If we find another inside forward, maybe we could dump some money in, but I don't want to put too much money onto that side of things. So let's just switch to the right side now, because this is very interesting. But also what I want to say is that the left side has contributed. So iTouch 23 goals, and Lever... That's 27 goals just from the right-hand side, the left-hand side now. Well, I remember where we had a season where 25 goals from all of our wingers combined was the problem we were having. So between those two, they've got 27 in all competitions. And we've got 17 from the right. So we're into like the 40s, closing on 50, which is a good sign. We've definitely solved that problem. So the right-hand side, points per game again. De Los Santos is actually higher than Unger, 2.06. And he's played a comparable amount of minutes to him. So that's definitely worth talking about. Ungerwee is slightly better when the team, from a defensive standpoint, and is better at interceptions. Sure, take that what we will. But De Los Santos makes some decent tackles. Key passes, De Los Santos is winning on that one. He is worse in the air than Unger because he's just not got the height. And he isn't anywhere near as good at dribbling. But his crossing is slightly better. Assist-wise, they are dead even. Like, completely dead even. But he does create more chances. So that's a good sign. We score roughly the same amount of goals with both of them in the team as well. So it's really much of a muchness. I think having both of those two around is very, very useful. I think Unger is still my starter currently. But De Los Santos is getting better every month. Every month he is that little bit better. And I do wonder if there's going to be a crossover point. And I think with James Unger being rested more next season to make sure that we can use him when we need to. Like, I want to be able to choose James Unger. I don't want to be forced to not pick him. And I think with resting him out when he's got high injury risk and bringing in De Los Santos for a game, that will allow us to manage him better so we can use him for the big games and get the most out of him. Because let's face it, he's scored some big goals for us this season. Even in, like he got that goal against Arsenal, and he's got, I know, and he got a goal and an assist against Brighton as well in that massive game towards the end of the year. I know that the goal against Arsenal didn't mean anything, but he's still scoring in big games. He also scored 2 in the Charity Shield final. He's got something there. I just want to get more out of him, essentially. And I think the way to do that is to use Augustin De Los Santos a little bit more. So that's that, basically. Content with the right-hand side. We've also Everton Luis as well as a backup. So I'm really not fussed about bringing anyone new there either. Let's go to central attacking. Let's go to the strikers now. So Guerra obviously is out front here. You can see that we do score more points with Guerra in the team than Rincon. He does score more goals still. He does have a better goal-scoring record than Rincon per 90 minutes, which is important. But Rincon does seem to get more shots on target per 90 minutes, despite having a worse shots on target percentage. I don't know what his penalties are like, but we can always put someone else on them. We do score more goals overall with Rincon in the team. It's a negligible amount, but it's not that negligible. That's quite a substantial amount. He's created no chances, though. He doesn't seem to assist very much. But then, I suppose, most of Guerra's assists, almost all of them would have come from free kicks and corners, wouldn't they? So I guess we've got to be careful with that. Cross completion is obviously much worse because he's not taking corners. He's a better dribbler than Guerra. And I do wonder, right, if the main problem with Guerra is this knocks ball past opponent one. Because he has great dribbling and he's not using it. And I've been trying to get rid of this trait for such a long time and it just isn't happening. And I wonder if that could make a big difference. Because as far as I know, Rincon doesn't have that attribute. And he's got excellent dribbling. And runs with ball often too. And I do wonder if that could make a huge difference for him. So we'll have to see. I'm very, very interested in what we could do with Georges Rincon now. He's better in the air. Not by much, in fact, very, very minimal amount, but he is winning more headers per 90 minutes, which could matter. Less key passes, but he does make more passes overall. Tackles, way more tackles as well. More interceptions, but we do concede more goals than him in the team. I genuinely think next year that I'm going to try and start off with Georges Rincon and see if there's a crossover point. To the point where I honestly wouldn't even mind if a big bid came in for Jose Nelson Guerra in the summer. Like, I'm talking like £100 million. Because that would actually make us, firstly, 80-odd million. And it might clear the way to have Rincon be our starter next year with Hadi Aslami as the backup, who could very well play as a deep lying forward in matches where we want to switch to a 4-4-2 against 4-4-2s. To have both of those two in the team could well be it would be a huge shake-up for the books. I've never ever done this in a save before, where we've had a striker that's got 250 appearances and 140 league goals, and then gone, you know what, we're actually going to trade you in season 15. It's just not something I've done before, but I do think you might be right. I think Rincon could well be next year's hero. And, you know, he's shown quality. He scored the only goal against Real Madrid. Like, he took one chance and bam, it was in. Admittedly, he missed one straight after, so we've got to be aware of that as well. So that is very, very pleasing. So the word of the day, which we always like to do, is going to be, well, it's actually a sentence, chocolate brownie bites, because I have a box of them on my desk, because I am what we like to call a fat fuck. And so I've been eating those while I've been recording this video as it happens. You might have even heard the chewing. You probably haven't. I would have cut that out. So yeah, use that in a sentence if you can. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. Obviously, I will have done the transfer window before then, but I'm still kind of interested to what you guys say, because you might think, well, he's not going to listen because, you know, next year he would have already done the transfer window or whatever. But it helps me ongoing, because I like to see if people either agree with me or if they don't and why they don't. It really does help form new thoughts for me for following seasons. Perhaps not even in, you know, this save, but others. That's how I've got better at the game. Genuinely, it works so well. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, drop a like on it. That would be tremendous. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And as always, hold your gun, capybara. Season 15, ahoy. Let's get this done, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.